The best of shopping right in the heart of Belfast.
Good afternoon. Now the Ulster News. The leader of the Loyalist volunteer force, Billy Wright, has been shot dead inside the Maze prison. The 37-year-old, who was nicknamed King Rat, died in a hail of bullets. 3 Republican inmates have been arrested. Tracy McGee reports.
Billy Wright was serving an 8-year jail sentence in the Maze prison for perverting the course of justice. It's understood around 10 o'clock this morning he was making a routine journey to the prison visitor centre when he was gunned down. He was shot 5 times and died at the scene. 4 people believed to be prison staff were also treated for shock. It's thought inmates connected to the Republican splinter group, the INLA, housed in a separate wing of H Block 6, climbed over the roof and opened fire on the leading loyalist. 3 inmates later surrendered to prison officers and were handed over to police. 2 firearms were also recovered. The men have been taken away for questioning by detectives. The prison service has launched a full-scale inquiry into the shooting and specifically into how the weapons were smuggled into the jail. Tracy McGee for UTV Live.
Meanwhile, as condemnation mounts over the death of Billy Wright, questions are now being asked about how the gun that was used in the shooting was smuggled into the jail. And questions too are being raised about the implications of this murder on the peace process. The Ulster Unionist security spokesman Ken McGuinness has called for the resignation of the Secretary of State Mo Mowlam and the head of the prison service Alan Shannon. Fergal McKinney reports.
He was known as King Rat, one of Ulster's most feared terrorists. Billy Wright, the former UVF man turned LVF leader, was based in mid-Ulster and made no secret of his support for loyalist terrorists. In his time as leader of the UVF in mid-Ulster, they were responsible for many murders. Many wanted him dead. He was targeted by the IRA and had death threats issued against him by loyalists following his splitting from the UVF.
He's believed to be involved in a number of sectarian murders, killing of Catholics in the mid-Ulster area, claimed by the UVF. He is sort of penciled in quite a number of those by the RUC, but he would never, in times I'd have asked him questions and probed things, he'd never have openly said, I did this or I did that. But you knew when you were talking to him that he had a pedigree, a history of that involvement.
And it's feared his death may serve to further unsettle loyalists.
The risk is, of course, that that element that is supportive of Billy Wright would say, well, we're going to have to seek some sort of revenge for this. The other fear is that it would also cause to further destabilise those in other loyalist ranks in the UVF and the UDA who may be, as we heard in the last 3 or 4 days, very unhappy about the circumstances of the peace talks.
Questions are now being asked about just how inmates got their hands on a gun in the Maze jail, which was already under the spotlight over the recent Avril prison escape. Meanwhile, a measure of the seriousness with which security forces are treating this murder, the interface between Catholic and Protestant West Belfast this afternoon is closed. Fergal McKinney, UTV Live.
Well, now we turn to sport and a roundup of yesterday's Boxing Day football.
A crowd of around 10,000 attended the annual Big Two derby match between Linfield and Glentoran at the Oval, and it was Linfield who had the first festive cheer. Stephen Beattie gave the Blues a first-half lead. Glentoran equalised at the start of the second half. Andy Kirk poked in from close range for a share of the points. Sadly, there was some minor crowd trouble. Missiles were thrown and a plank was dropped onto the Linfield terracing. Referee John Ferry was forced to take the players off the pitch for about 10 minutes. When they returned, there were no further disturbances, and on the pitch, the only notable highlight was the sending off of Paul Miller for a second bookable offence.
It was vintage Ports at Shamrock Park, back at the top of the Premier, courtesy of an opening strike by Raymond Byrne, a Christmas box from Keeper O'Neill. And it had a silver lining for Vinnie Arkins, his 25th of the season, 2-0 in the end over Glenavon.
A bumper crowd at the showground saw Philip Nell head the home side into a second-half lead against Coleraine. But the visitors then caught the Ballymena defence square, and Gaston tapped in. 4 defenders looked on as the unmarked Barry Patton picked up the ball and scored a tremendous solo goal. But Coleraine struck back 4 minutes before the end as Willie Jameson's deft finish rescued a point.
Well, that's the news and sport for the moment. We'll be back with an update at 5:10. Good afternoon.